Yo, what's going on, guys? It's your boy, Atypical Security Guard, coming to you from the Security Guard channel with tonight's Security Guard Radio podcast. Guys, this is going to be episode 4, and today I want to talk about something that is a little, I don't want to say controversial, but I have a feeling that when I go down this road, it has the potential to ruffle some feathers and cause some problems. But listen, I'm not one to shy away from controversy or tough topics. Hopefully, if you guys have been following my channel, following the growth of what we're doing here, you're aware of that. So let's get right into it, guys. Listen, I put up a post that was related to a sheriff's department that had reached out to me over the past couple of days, informing me that I was in the running for a potential position. Now, full transparency, this is for a reserve officer position, and I applied for this position last year when I was going through the steps to try and, gain employment with a local police department. I went through the Portland Police Bureau, some of the other outlying cities that are around, and a couple of different sheriff's departments. Some of them I heard back from, some of them I decided against. And, again, if you're following this channel and you're following my journey, you know that at one point in time last year, I made the decision that I was just going to focus on being a security guard and helping the industry in any way that I can in terms of educating, motivating, training, and informing other security guards, right? But lo and behold, this sheriff's department reached out to me. My name was still in the hat for the running of this reserve position. And I started thinking to myself, maybe this is happening for a reason. Part of me had kind of given up on the idea of being in law enforcement. Part of me had kind of resigned myself to the fact that I was going to stick solely with security. I do enjoy security. I love security. More than anything, I love working with other guards and helping to train other guards and learn. So thinking about the opportunity to be a reserve officer, that really, it intrigues me, because the options and the opportunities to train and be around law enforcement officers who are seasoned and who are fully embedded and immersed in this lifestyle, that's very appealing to me. So I thought, what? I kind of feel like I have unfinished business. Every step of the way with every department, either I was denied immediately or I went through, some semblance of the phases of interviews or oral board or taking the test, but I've never gone all the way through and just kind of gotten to the end of that process. And so this opportunity presenting itself, it gives me potentially one more shot to try and do this. So when I posted that information on YouTube the other day, I had a lot of people reach out. Some people reached out via comments on the post, and some other people emailed me personally. A few people that even have my phone number, they sent me text messages, and they said, man, listen, one thing, I'm interested to know what it is that's keeping you from getting picked up. You've been talking about, all of your interviews and places that you've reached out to. You seem like a good guy. You seem like you have your head on your shoulders. You talk about, owning a business in the past, and you're very open and transparent with the things that you're doing. It seems like you're really dialed in. What is it that's keeping you from getting picked up by these police agencies? And I started thinking about that and kind of running down my top 5 things that I personally think are prohibiting me from getting picked up by some of these agencies. So let's get right into it. 5 through 2 are really in no particular order, but my number one thing is going to be my number one thing. All right. So the first thing is going to be age. Guys, I am currently 43 years old. Okay. Now I feel like I'm in great shape for most people my age, but in terms of being a law enforcement officer, being a cop, being a sheriff's deputy, if I'm a chief, if I'm a sheriff and I'm looking to bring people in, on one hand, you can't fault people for wanting people who are younger, right? Someone in their 20s, maybe at the most in their 30s, because what you're wanting is to be able to bring people into your agency that can be there for the long haul, right? You don't want to invest a lot of time and a lot of effort and a lot of money into people that at best are going to give you, 5 or 10 years. Now, in my personal opinion, I think that that's a really old and antiquated way of looking at things. I think that if I was in charge and I was running a police department or running a sheriff's department, I would want people with more life experience. Yes, you get that 22-year-old fresh out of college or fresh out of the military. Yeah, you're getting a young, virile, agile, strong specimen of a person. But what that person has in terms of their physical ability, a lot of times they're lacking in their life experiences. Right now, with the police departments and policing in general being under so much scrutiny, in my opinion, having people with more life experience, having people with families, with kids, and people who've just gone through more, I think they bring a lot to the table in terms of that 21st century approach to policing that I think is beneficial. But listen, I'm not the one making those decisions. When given the opportunity to have these conversations with people in terms of interviews or oral boards, this is what I talk about as a skill set that I can bring to the table as a police officer or as a sheriff's deputy. But again, I don't make those decisions, and I think that could be one of the factors that is kind of playing against me. The fourth thing, so we're going from, that would be number 5, right? The fourth thing would be, in the past, up until just recently, I've had really bad credit. I'm going to be honest with you guys. I filed for bankruptcy back in 2008, and up until the point that I met my current wife, so we're talking about up until 2016, I had just given up. I had resigned myself to the fact that I was never going to have anything. I went through a bad divorce, and I kind of took on a victim mentality financially, and I didn't do a lot of the things that I needed to do in terms of taking care of my responsibilities. And so up until I made the decision, in 2019, 2020, that I wanted a house, I had kind of just let my credit go. And I think that if you're looking to get into law enforcement, now this is me kind of preaching to the younger people that are listening to this, your credit is so important. Because if I am, again, in a position of hiring someone to be a cop or be a sheriff's deputy or a CO, you're talking about putting people in a position where if they're financially in a bad situation, they could potentially be compromised, right? Someone could take a bribe, or someone could steal something or do something, or maybe behave in a way that's not necessarily going to be looked upon favorably with law enforcement. And again, everything right now is under so much scrutiny. So I think that up until recently, when I've gotten my credit under control and I've started to raise that credit to the point that I was able to actually buy a house, I think that was probably something that also would have played against me. Because again, it puts the department in a position where they could bring someone in that could easily be compromised because they have financial problems. So if you're young and you're looking at, being a cop or doing anything in terms of law enforcement, make sure that your credit and your bills and your name, that all of that stuff is clear and that it's clean and that it's up to where it needs to be, because that can be something that plays against you. So let's go to number 3. Number 3 would be my past history. What do I mean by that? My past history. So I got into corrections in 2008. 2008, yeah. So I moved to Pennsylvania, and I got hired on by a county prison, right? And I was the second black hire ever. I mean, this prison had been there since the late 1800s, and I was one of the only 2 black COs, and I think that I was hired maybe 3 months after the first black CO had ever been hired. And unfortunately, a lot of things happened in that prison in terms of how I was treated that were directly tied to racism. It's not something that I was feeling, or something that I assumed, or something that I kind of was taking something the wrong way. I was legitimately called a nigger by superiors. I was in a training class where they were referring to the baton as a nigger be cool stick. And when I made complaints about this, I was demoted, and my opportunity to go full-time was taken away from me, and I made a complaint. And after making that complaint, I was terminated. This situation ended up being arbitrated. I had to go to court over the entire situation, and I ultimately won the case. But by doing that, by taking that stance of, filing a lawsuit against this county prison, it put a target on my back. I thought that it was best for me to get out of law enforcement after this situation. But not long after that, a couple of years, I decided to try again and go into a state corrections officer position. And when I got to that prison, I didn't realize that the warden from the county prison had been a lieutenant at this state prison. And again, some of the same things that I dealt with at that county prison started to rear their head at this state prison. Now, let me just say this. I am not here to debate racism or to play the victim or to, complain about my lot in life, okay? And when I say this, I mean this. At the time, 2008, 2009, 2010, I was a completely different person. And I didn't have the ability to go to work, do my job, and deal with some of the bullshit. Now, you fast forward to 2022, working in Portland as a security guard, I get called a nigger every single day. I know that I've said that before, and I know that people think that I'm talking in hyperbole or I'm being like ironic. I'm not. I mean this literally. Every single day that I go to work, someone calls me a nigger. And before, when I was new to this profession, when I was new to this job, that really affected me, and I was not able to push past it. Now, we can have a conversation on whether or not that's something that I should tolerate or that anyone should have to tolerate. But at the end of the day, it is a part of this environment. Whether we're talking about, criminals, or we're talking about people with a horrible upbringing, or people that just have, a racist disposition. It's not something that should be tolerated, but it is something that happens. And you can spend all of your career trying to fight against these kind of things, or you can do your job. And too much when I was new to this profession, I was not able to see that nuance. And I can see that when that situation comes up and that conversation is had, there are going to be people out there that just don't want someone that they're afraid could potentially bring lawsuits or cause problems in terms of making waves and making ripples. I think that could be something that has come up. The second thing is going to be my social media presence and my political activism. So since I've been in Portland, and we're talking about, 2020, and being a part of seeing the riots and seeing the uprisings and some of the things that happened during the George Floyd protests and riots, I have been on the local news probably 3 or 4 times. I'm very open with my feelings about security. I'm very open with my political leanings. And I think that some of the things that I have said, and, there's videos on my channel, guys. You can probably search through here and see some of the things that I've said directly about the mayor, some of the things that I've said directly about our quote unquote city leadership. I think that has probably also played into it as well. Guys, I take full responsibility for the things that I have said. I'm very passionate. And I feel like I'm articulate, and I feel like I have a level head and a common sense approach to things. And for a while there, I was thinking about running for city government, as a commissioner or something similar. And I think that public record of my feelings on certain people in charge has probably put me in the crosshairs in terms of not being potentially welcome in certain places. Now, Again, I don't think that's fair. I believe in freedom of speech. I haven't said anything that's not true. If you listen to any of the videos or any of the interviews from the news, I have not said anything that's not true or anything that should be taken as inflammatory. I'm speaking facts. But I think that anytime that someone, takes a stand and draws a line in the sand, a lot of times that can be viewed as potentially dangerous. And a lot of organizations just don't want that. I understand that and I'm okay with that. But I think that unfortunately, that's probably something that has been used against me and that has kept me off of some of these police departments. Now, I want to say this. I think that policing, again, we always hear the term 21st century policing. And when I've gone through, 2 interviews and 1 oral board, that conversation came up. 21st century policing, 21st century approach to policing. How can policing be different? Well, I think that policing becomes different by having people that are able to talk about ambiguity and nuance, being able to talk about racism, being able to talk about some of these hard topics and not be emotionally charged about it, but be able to talk about it in a 360-degree perspective so that things can change, right? And that leads me to the number one thing. I think that being outspoken or being open about the history of policing, how that relates to the Black community, how the situation between Antifa, Black Lives Matter, the Proud Boys, all of these topics that people want to somewhat dance around and not necessarily have an open conversation. I have been on record having feelings about all those things. And I think that for some agencies, for most agencies, they want a particular type of officer. They want an officer that is going to show up, clock in, clock out, not talk about hard topics, not discuss politics, because frankly, it's too inflammatory. Saying anything today can cause a problem. Having any sort of position can cause a problem. In these police departments and these sheriff's departments, again, everything is being so scrutinized. Everybody's looking, everybody's listening, and everybody is waiting for someone to slip up, say the wrong thing. And I think that from a position of liability, I think that there are organizations out there, there are municipalities out there that probably are just not willing to bring on someone with a history of saying certain things and having a stance. And I think that that's sad. I think that that really is to the detriment of policing. And I think that the approach that I take to these topics and how that affects me as an officer and how I would approach working with people, working with the community, being able to talk about all sides of these issues, I think that is so important to moving past a lot of the problems that we have, specifically here in Portland. And we have so many problems that people just don't want to talk about. They don't want to come up with real common sense solutions, right? And I think it's very, very unfortunate, but that is the reality. I think that those are the 5 things, if I was being honest, that I think are keeping me or holding me back or that are potential roadblocks. And I hope that I'm in a position at some point in time, maybe with this sheriff's department, to move past that. But at the end of the day, if I'm not, and I never get that opportunity, I will continue to do what I'm doing because I feel like the work that I'm doing and the advocacy through this channel, through working with you guys, talking to you guys and trying to train other officers, I think that ultimately I'm going to have the impact that God wants me to have. I don't know if that's going to be on a police department, if that's going to be on a sheriff's department, or if strictly just going to be working in security, being a good person, and trying to put out a message that resonates with people. And if that's the plan, I'm happy with that. But this opportunity presented itself. I am going to do the physical test next week and just kind of see where I'm at. And I'm going to go through the motions and we'll see what happens. And as always, I'll keep you guys informed. Okay. So I want to tell you guys before I let you go, I do appreciate the support. Having you guys, say, hey, we're pulling for you. We wish you the best. We know you can do it. And guys, I know that I've flip-flopped on this topic so many times. And it's only because in my heart, I do want to help people. And I see policing right now under scrutiny, and I see policing under attack. And I wish that more officers who are already on the force would take these conversations and utilize it as an opportunity to push the force forward and push the conversation forward to a better place. And I see people leaving. I see people, just digging their heels in on their sides. And I just want to be of help. And in my heart, I know that I could be a good police officer. I know I could be of help. And until that opportunity is just truly not there anymore, it's going to probably always be pulling at me a little bit. So I want to see how this goes. I want to flesh it out. And at the end of the day, I'll accept whatever the results are. But I do want to give it one more shot. Okay. So anyway, that's my thoughts. As always, appreciate you guys being here. Thinking of you, hoping that you guys are all being safe. And as always, I want you to go out there and be great. Okay? Be great.